Спросили у реплевик. Так. Знаете, не? Стул и стол.
КГБ.
Да, я понял, о чем речь. Идемте, я вас провожу.
Спасибо.
I've never seen you break your teeth like that before.
Hey, it's a little rusty.
So I said breaking your teeth.
А если что-то есть еще интересное, нам покажешь? Что это такое?
Это бима.
Откуда?
Казабинский.
Это сборная. Вот здесь узоры от разных из разных мест. Здесь из одного места и здесь из другого. Это инсталляция, это не исторический. Не историческая.
Guys, this is a bima. The different pieces are from different places, basically.
It's basically made up from different shores.
Зал, где говорится об истории, культуре, религии евреев.
It's about the religious culture of the Jews.
Ну, в привязке к местности. Днепр, Днепропетровский, Екатеринослав, Украина и так далее. То есть это Бима, это самая старая синагога в Острове ее макет. Вот это вот.
So that's the oldest show in that display case over there.
Вот это.
This is if there.
Где был лагерь уничтожения, концентрационный лагерь.
This was in a concentration camp?
Treblinka.
Треблинка, Польша. Вот это вот Талмуд.
Что это за Харисия fish, Yossi?
Это
риба. Oh,
псами.
okay. The fish is a psalm holder.
Да, короны Торы. Вот это. Я понял.
Pavel. Guys, this is Pavel, our tour guide.
То, что имеет отношение к традиции.
Guys, look at the little dreidels.
Ханукия, вот
Синивон.
кружки для ритуального омовения и так далее.
Washing your hands, in your Talmud.
Вечный свет, люстра вечного света и так далее.
That's the Levik's clothes?
Over there.
Was noch?
Guys, you have to understand, I mean, look at this wallpaper, right?
Это фотографии свидетельства рождения
like
разных
a properly
времен,
done museum.
от более или менее
Cut out on the
современных
ceiling, it's like-
до старых. Вот. И здесь показана значит, еврейская жизнь Екатеринослава и Украины от
This is
начала,
showing Jewish life in Ukraine.
и до конца. Обрезание,
You have the bris milah up there, bar mitzvah, bar mitzvah.
бар-мицва, брачные контракты.
Oh,
тоже,
here you have the wedding, so it's showing the cycle of life.
Это все фотографии с настоящих контрактов.
These are photographs of real kesuvos.
И надгробные плиты.
These are famous spots. You can see you have Machpelah, and then over here you have different environmental cuts, and maybe soil erosion, Chaim Volozhin. Where's the Baal Shem Tov? Somewhere
Up,
over here?
middle. Smack in the
Over
middle.
here, right over here, the Baal Shem Tov. This is
By ditch it right next to
this
it.
is the Ayah. What is it, right? Kibbutz Rachel.
Yini v'achros hayam, v'garzevim keves v'namarim v'yir, but v'narkot v'neigvam.
See, you're doing Seder right here.
This is say the gear stuff, we'll soon get to the
Okay, продолжаем.
С этой стороны вот тоже интересно. Это традиционная посуда, тоже достаточно старинная и праздничная. Эту посуду, которая кидушная, кидушная. Вот эти вот, да, вот это вот мебель, это тоже настоящая. Вот это. Да, там то, что дальше, это инсталляция, а это настоящая.
Okay, here's the most important chevra. Come through. This is the most important part.
Фотографии любавических рэбе. Вот.
Explain us this.
Этих людей вы, вероятно, знаете. Раби
like-
Менахем
you already know this
Мендел
person.
Шнерсон. И вот фотография со съезда эмиссаров Хаббата в Нью-Йорке. Вот здесь люди, да, вот здесь люди приходят и узнают своих раввинов, вот, которые были на этом съезде эмиссаров. Вот. Это наши местные, когда было он у нас уже достаточно давно. Нет, это Менахем Мендел Шнерсон.
Yeah, standing next to the...
А вот это вот
Is who?
да, вот это вот да, инсталляция кабинета КГБ. Вот, там, где допрашивали людей, пытали и так далее. Вот примерно так выглядели эти кабинеты. Вот. Настольная лампа, пишущая машинка, стул, телефон.
And guys, look, you have the cigarette with its little ashtray.
That's true. You're not
Over
sure.
here is like a file on someone.
The babies? No.
No, it's just
Without
an
touching, without
example.
touching.
Here they made up whatever they made up. And you have to
Also, this
sign
one,
the
this one is in Russian.
Понимаешь?
И все, потом фотография Дзержинский, знаете, наверное. Да, это
Okay, genug. Let's go weiter. Это что?
это коммуны.
Right.
Вот. До этого времени в Российской империи запрещалось вообще евреям там, иметь землю и работать на земле. Вот. После,
Was to help the Jews work the land.
После революции 17-го года было разрешено, но была страшная бедность, голодомор и
Because
так
at
далее.
first it was forbidden for them to work the land, and then.
Да.
Okay. By the way, at the beginning of Hasidus, right, there was in the middle of his time, there was a big push
Вот
to.
это тоже фотография настоящая. Ну, это вот, да,
Who's that in the photo?
евреи, которые там сидят на тракторе, да, и там пашут землю.
That's the like my.
Вот здесь очень интересные есть вещи. В 1918 году была создана первая Украинская республика, вот,
That's the first
которая
Ukrainian money.
The communists didn't think it was fine. Then they started showing that they're going to let Yidden work, but they're going to fight Yiddish.
на четырех. Вот.
Sie bringen zu der Wahl, go everybody vote. Maar enigste Jiddische socialistische arbeiderpartij.
Guys,
So
the
they
first
were
Ukrainian
fighting.
money was written in 4 languages, right? Okay.
Вы можете посмотреть, там есть надписи.
You can see it?
Where?
Yeah, 100 fun.
Where?
Right
Вот,
here
вот,
on this
вот, вот,
big
что,
middle one,
вот,
middle
вот,
one over there.
надпись.
Oh, over there. Look,
On the
look
bottom
at that
right
one, the
under.
100. You can see.
That's a big $100.
Yeah,
bill.
100 son, Novences.
You got some interesting glasses over there.
Some in Tabak. Watch doesn't work.
Традиционно еврейских. Вот, бунт и другие листы,
Что это Бербарахов?
о которых стоит помнить сегодня.
Theodore Gertzel, he's up there.
Дело Бейлиса о том, как был...
This is the Holocaust сейчас?
Нет, это не имеет пока отношения к Холокосту. Это то, что было в Российской империи. Был безвинно обвинен человек в убийстве, якобы ритуальном убийстве человека, и он был осужден только потому, что он был евреем.
Okay, so this is just about like how they would target and persecute the Jews and arrest them simply because they were Jewish. Что это за штука?
Это тоже настоящая весть, это подарок жителя Днепропетровска.
It's a cane. Okay, this is a cane.
Да, это маленькое, да, селение городского, все-таки типа, и основные занятия. Занимались шитьем, да,
You put your stuff, I guess, on this part, and then.
Вот это вот маленькое кирпичи для строительства. Вот.
So here you have bricks that were used for construction.
Почти все заводы принадлежали либо немцам, либо евреям, поэтому эти кирпичи собраны здесь. На них стоит это клеймо, фамилия и имя владельца. Вот. По этому клейму мы можем понять, кто был этот человек.
Это было один из них, или это фамилия, которые делали такие...
Это фамилии владельца. Это фамилии, ну, не рабочих, на заводе рабочих много, а стояли фамилии владельца завода. Заводики были небольшие, но тем не менее.
I think what he's saying is that basically families would have brick companies and they would put their name on their bricks and then you would...
Портного и обувщика вот, в одном лице. Все эти вещи были найдены на чердаке одной из квартир. Было понятно, что это еврейское. Вот по одной вещи, которая... Мамам и бабушкам гладить. Попробуете?
Hold it.
Можно попробовать.
Oh, it's heavy. So it's open.
Так, да, это открывается.
Yeah.
Вот сюда кладется.
Can you imagine ironing 15 shirts like that?
It's heavy. Heavy. Heavy.
That's why you don't mess with babushkas.
И что это такое? What is it?
Camera.
Вот. Это
camera или
да,
видео?
Нет, это камера, это фотокамера,
regular
да,
photocamera?
начало 20 века.
Okay, who wants to stand
From the
there?
20th
Someone sit
generation,
down.
the 20th century.
Тут объектив, сюда вставляют.
Yeah, what's
Stay there. Was it, everyone move out of the way. Oh no, stay where you are. Everyone stay where you are. One second, stay.
Here, you be the photographer.
Stand right where you are, smile, cheese, and ta-da.
Century.
What turn is it? 2000?
No, 1900s.
По фамилиям можно примерно определить, кто были преподаватели и директоры вузов и школ. Вот мы читаем фамилию директора и людей, которые с этим связаны. Значит, слева это
And he voluntarily went along with him. He said, I can't leave them by themselves, so he went to the gas chambers with them,
With his students.
with his students.
Это...
No, on William.
Нет,
from here?
Yeah.
From here?
нет.
So this guy in the photo, he was a teacher of Jewish students, but he himself wasn't Jewish, but he couldn't let them go by themselves, and so so he went with them to the gas chambers.
Этот стенд посвящен Хаскале. Вот. Были люди, которые говорили, что евреи должны развиваться сами по себе и только читать Тору
As a day that the Friedrich Rebbe Be'etzem got arrested for. Because Purim was the big Farbrengen, Purim Tezayin, and following that the Friedrich Rebbe got arrested. There's a tier of this whole Maimer, how the Friedrich Rebbe was Farbrengen, and you were not allowed to collect money then. And he said, put money, and he started talking against the Bolsheviks that were there. And the whole Maimer of Ata Tetzave is a play off that Maimer. I'm saying it's a beer based on that Maimer that the Friedrich Rebbe said, the Kibla Yehudim. And what was the whole Milchama about? What was the Friedrich Rebbe bringing about? Chinuch. You know what Chinuch was? It was against this and against this. Okay?
Yeah, same thing.
Exactly. So listen closely. I'll do it. What this is, if you went yesterday on our beautiful tour, he explained at some point that there was a house that was a university, a Yiddish university, where they taught trades. And they also taught a little Torah and they taught trades. He said Reb Leivik fought against it. You know why? Because Reb Leivik and the Rebbe Rashab, Reb Leivik held himself as a chassid, but Batson the Rebbe, he was the same age as the Rebbe Rashab. They both fought against these things. Not because there's a problem with Yid making money, but because it's Hanachas HaOlam. They wanted, just like the guy wanted to get a doctorate, wanted to get a diploma, exactly. Kechol HaGoyim Beis Yisrael will also give diplomas in Yiddish. And that was the whole mindset, that you know what, the whole anti-Semitism is going to go schlafen if we'll be just like the Goyim. And this is the philosophy that was the brainchild of these, I don't want to use any Toyarim, the people that are sitting over here. Okay? This is Moses Mendelssohn. He said the famous line, Hayeh Yehudi bebeitecha ve ben adam betzeitecha. In your house you do whatever you want. When you go outside, act like Rahman al-Islam, like the Goyim. No. A little bit later, Moses Mendelssohn. And then you have, and this was the mahalach that even Torah, Rahman al-Islam, is philosophy. Okay, this person was named, say his name, Shem Yirka, was Heinrich Gretz. Okay, also, everything will learn Torah,
Second one.
but like that's this one? What does it say?
That's correct.
Gretz. We'll learn Torah like a philosophy. We'll check it like science. And this was the Milchama of the Rebbe Rashab. The Rebbe Rashab said, no, we're not going to teach Russian, and we're not even going to learn how to read Russian. Like he said yesterday, skillfully, Reb Leivik became a Rav and couldn't be a Rav Mitam. He wanted to be a Rav Mitam, Pasha, to be able to bring, what is it called, government funding to help Yidden. But he couldn't because he didn't know how to read Russian. You know what that means? He didn't know from nothing. That's the chinuch of Taim Chetmim. And B'meila, that's why we're here on Purim Katan. Okay, Purim Katan is the day of Mesiras Nefesh. You should understand that even things that look so normal, and they are normal for people in the belt, a tamim shteit hecher from them. And that's what the Rebbe Rashab said, I don't care, they shouldn't, the Rebbe, there's a sikh of the Rebbe, I don't care if they don't know how to use a brush, a shoe brush. They're going to be Yidden that are dedicated only to Torah. And chas v'shalom not to learn Torah like a chachma. So you always need to stop and think of befrat of atag behind. On Purim Katan and Mesiras Nefesh v'chinuch means to us, we have to be Torah Yidden in Ganzen. If you know something about Welt, it's to help you in Torah. Anything, the Schusterschaft and all the gute Sachen, how they make roofs and how they make gaskets, whatever they showed over here, very negea. Only if it's helping Torah. The Rebbe Rashab said, I need my kids, I need my tmimim, they shouldn't know Tzur Samadveya. If they know it's how to support, the only thing that really exists is Chayoli Beis David, Asher, Cherfu, Hikvus Mishachecha. Those that are going to fight against those who will uphold Mashiachin, and was heißt uphold Mashiach? Mashiach is that Kulam Yeduaisi, the whole Welt is Elikos, and the Tmimim are those that Elikos B'Pshitis. Was heißt Elikos B'Pshitis? That the reason why the Welt exists, for Torah, for the Eibishter, for Gil Elikos. And these other but these other Yidden, they learned up here in Shkol, and they said, listen, we want to explain it to the Goyim, so let's make the Torah similar enough that they can understand it. And the end of all the Yidden that try to become like Goyim and look nice in the eyes of the Goyim, all ended up Rahman al-Islam under the Krushim. They finished. And therefore the Menorah Center is the most gewaltige Nitzachar of Yidden. The pride, the Goyim Yaakov that the Shliach was explaining us Moiri. Over here, it's the in thing to be a Frum Yid. Not because they're trying to be like the Goyim, because the Goyim are trying to be Lubavitch, right? He wants to be able to write on his resume the governor, the mayor, that he is the Shabbos Guy of Rabbi Kamenetsky. The Imagine So this is a very, very appropriate on Purim Katan to see. The Friedrich Rebbe said, if they tell you they're going to burn your son, still don't send them to Shkola. And the Friedrich Rebbe fainted in the middle of the Maimer. Everybody knows. I should have printed it. the Frierdiker Rebbe fainted in the middle of the Maimer, and the elder of Siddim said the Frierdiker Rebbe is schwach. It's not going to survive. They schlepped in Rebbetzin, Stern, sorry, the Rebbetzin of the Rebbe Rashab, and said, tell him to stop saying Maimer. There's over here KGB, his mother. Tell him to stop. And she said, and she told him to stop. And he said, Mama, the Tata zog mir zog weiter. Something like that. And the Frierdiker Rebbe ripped his shirt open. Notice? And pointed at his flesh. And he said, if you see me burning, don't stop for a second. That was the Mesiras Nefesh of the Frierdiker Rebbe that the Rav was saying upstairs. Hazorim bedima, rinnu yiktzerim. Reb Leivik stood here to the bitter end when all other Rabbanim ran away. And it was the right thing to do, because there was no one for him. And he stood, no, we're going to say that we're not masking to close the shoals, and not. And this Gaon Yaakov is what planted the seeds for our Rebbe and for the Rebbe Shluchim today to set a proud yid. So we need to take L'maisa B'Payel. I know there's no mashki here. The achlata is we need to be Tmimim. Tmimim is Neidus L'Hoyer with Gaon Yaakov. Gaon Yaakov al Zbayish Mefnei Amaligim Sidan Nora Lakus. The Welt is the tapet. It's just to bring in.
Kadetsky corpus.
Oh. The prime soldiers, this is us. Everything is created just for us Tmimim, and we have to make sure that from them tug we're machlit that we never chas v'shalom want to have any shaykhs with Welt. We see where it got them, and we follow the Rebbe Rashab. Beautiful, beautiful place that they set it together. I don't know how they could sit on the same wall, but I guess.
And he was telling us different stuff, but he showed us some papers. One thing I remember, he told us, how does he stay so healthy? He does sit-ups every day.
He's 90-something years old.
He was like this old guy, was just like running around. Like.
He built, yesterday the tour guide explained this, he managed built like a whole bunch of hospitals. He was an architect or something.
And then there was a boy who was his grandson or
Yeah.
something. He was yeshiva.
Mendel Schneerson.
Menachem Mendel Schneerson. And where's he now, in Austria or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, you heard of Nachman Schneerson.
Ja, dat mag wel weer.
To Dnipro, Yossi Flick, who is in charge of the Hashem over here, he told us, or I heard from Zalman Hackner, who told me that Yossi Flick said nobody ever was in the Rebbe's apartment. Right across the street from Miranova, where you're staying, there used to be a house, and upstairs supposedly there was an apartment where there was. So I said, okay, that's someplace that we have to obviously go to. So when we were here for the year, we went to take a look. We went up the stairs, climbed up, and on top of the door there was a glass piece. We looked through, and you could see like it was empty, but there were like some workers, like something was happening over there. Basically, workers were staying there. We went downstairs to the notary, and they told us who the owner, who's in charge of it. Basically, they gave us a number. So we had Yossi Glick's secretary give them a call and explain how we wanted to do a farbeng in there. And could we please have the keys? So they said, of course, basically. And so it was Pesach camp, and we were coming into Dnipro to go bowling or to the billiards place, the Zeppelin or something. And so we organized that either before or after there was going to be a farbeng in there. So we're schlepping tables and chairs from Miranova and bananas, it's Pesach, and oranges and 18% wine. So you've never had 18% wine, but it's only wine. It's not mashka, right? So you could have a whole cup at a time. So it was a Levitic farbeng, and we had pictures of all the Rebbeim that we put up in the house. And
How many kids in the camp?
Must have been 40, 50 kids at a time. And we did shifts.
I think we only did the older boys.
Did we?
Maybe, I think
The young kids we just brought through them? I definitely remember shifts.
Maybe, but the farbeng, I think, was just for the older boys. I remember Zalman, what was David's last name? David and Zalman, two brothers.
Oh, Yugachenko. No. No. Not Jewish.
We found out later. Anyways.
You get a bris before you found out?
I think so.
Yurashev?
Yurashev, yeah. Anyways, it was an incredible Farbrengen and then Nigunim and everything, and we davened Mincha over there. And, so naturally it broke out into the smaller little Farbrengens. At the Farbrengen, two of the kids, made achlatas that I remember. I'm sure there were more, but both of those achlatas were kept. One was a boy, he's coming here soon to meet us, Mendel Bolshak, and he made achlata to go to the Rebbe. And you have to understand, this wasn't stam. Like, it required miracles. His mother was in jail for drug use or whatnot, and his father was the wrong father on the birth certificate. It was like a whole mess of documents. It took years for
It wasn't like make a passport in 2 days.
Exactly.
We have 3 boys here. We have 3 boys here that made a passport in 2 days.
They had a thing over here. So you guys learned 12 Prokim. These kids who know for not too much, they would learn the parsha every single week with intense questions.
100
Rashi.
questions on the Chumash Rashi every week.
Every single
And they had to get over a 90
So,
average altogether.
I remember he did it,
Let's talk about the Mesiras Nefesh of David Bush. This guy right over here translated all those questions so that we could learn with the kids. Translated the questions and prepared the answers so that the Bachrim that were here could sit and learn with the kids.
Anyways, so that was one achlata, which eventually it happened, and he was able to go for Tishrei. And the other one was Tzal. He made achlata to have a bris, something that whenever any of the counselors would bring it up to him in the past, it was like out of the question. He was a very
He's a very strong boy.
He's very strong, but like he was totally not shaykh to bris beforehand. But then it was a Hisayrus, and he said, "I'm going for it," and it wasn't stam because his mother was against it because his mother was married not to his father at the time. He was married to another guy, and she was afraid of his reaction or whatever. So she didn't allow it, but that summer, I think it was, he had a bris, and
She found out a few years later, Mr.
for 3 days afterwards. Usually kids are lying in bed or hobbling around, and he had to look totally normal because none of the other kids were supposed to know that he had a bris, right? Because then the news might get back. And so he's walking around totally normal. He didn't go on the trip because he, had a cold or something, right? So not just a Mesiras Nefesh for a bris, but a Mesiras Nefesh that no one should even know of the bris, right? And then from there, he went for Tishrei, and he went and he.
Can I add 2 things over here? There's 2 Mesiras Nefesh in here that you have to really understand. A kid with a Yiddish name, being called by his Goyish name by all of his friends, a Yiddish name that he's so proud of, but can't tell anybody. Pashat couldn't tell anybody that he has a Yiddish name. He had to keep it a secret. Erstens. Zweitens
and by
was
the way,
mikveh.
if you don't have
He made achlata to go to mikveh. And he couldn't go to mikveh
At the
because
same time.
they would see that he has a bris. So he used to get up early in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, and go to mikveh while everyone was sleeping, and then get back into bed, kilu, he's still sleeping.
And the minig over here is that if you don't have a bris, you don't get called up to the Torah, right? I think Yud Shvat, that's when he got an aliyah then.
He got an aliyah, and mumbled on, and nobody heard anything. And he gets an aliyah, and then rumors started.
Anyways, so wild story, but he never looked back from then. It was
No.
just
Then he went to yeshiva,
yeah.
Cincinnati. Then he went to Brumois. And then he opened the business. No, he's a shliach here in Shtad.
Yeah. Over here, you could be a businessman and still be a shliach. It's not a.
We're going to go now, after we finish with, what's time?
12.
What?
12:57.
Perfect. Let's go now to Shiurei Torah. Lubavitch? STL?
Kids, teenagers, that they come to learn Torah, and like that's what they're doing with their life. Instead of smoking on the street corner, they're coming and learning, and that's what they want to do. They want to be a part of this. They don't want to be a part of the street. It's it's incredible. It's like when you can have the idea of a chassid machtas sirta, that's what's going on over here. Where now, usually you think about how we're outside of culture, we're outside of society. Over here, they made it the culture, they made it society to be involved in Yiddishkeit, and that's it's incredible.
Let me see.
Let's go. When Agamach, this whole Maisa that he showed us before, that was teaching trades, Yitzum L'Shivcham, they were Yidden, and he did tell us yesterday that at the end, when in the time of the First World War, Yidden started coming, the Rebbe says the Maisa that his mother went all the way out and she started being busy with helping Platon. And I don't know if you looked in Yom Yom, the Shalshal Sayachas. So over there it says that in Taf Reish Ayin Ches, I think, it says the Rebbe Omad Limin Aviv. This all happened in their building. That means L'maisa B'Poyel, when Yidden needed help, they evacuated all their classes and let Yidden come there and stay there and feed them there in the building near their school. So you should know that even if Yidden farfir nazoyvait and Reb Leivit fought against them, Maisa B'Poyel, when the time came and they were needed for Mesiras Nefesh, they let.
Just to point out that not all of these are trade schools. This is a cheder. This is a cheder. It's a mix over here.
I think he said they both happened in the same place. I don't know about this guy. I'm saying the tour guide of yesterday. But Maisa B'Poyel, in the time of the war, the Rebbe for sure visited this building. The Rebbe was involved in making sure they have a place to eat, that they had their learning, and that's all.
David, you want to start?
What are we doing?
We're doing
Over here you have just a whole bunch of Ki'ilu enlightened people. Germany was one of the top, right? They weren't a third world country. This was, one of the most advanced things, and yet they were able to be so meshuggah for hate and to do the worst things possible, imaginable to humanity. So the Rebbe always taught us that we have to have shtus kedusha, right? And so you have over here, it reminds us, and it's like, how could you even imagine, I mean, we just had a Holocaust survivor come speak to our community. We had 500 people, and she was telling me afterwards, there was an incredible story that happened this Hanukkah where you have, so number one, shtus kedusha. Number two, this Hanukkah, the shliach in Berlin, Rabbi Teichtel, he was running into issues with his menorah lighting, right? What happened? In the end, the president of Germany, his name is the President Sternmeier or something. Anyways, he came and helped light the menorah himself, right? And so you have the total transformation, and this is what we've been hearing all day, how the Rebbe conquered France, he conquered Yekaterinoslav, right? Previously, now the KGB is afraid of the shluchim, right? And Germany also. She told me that she met with She met with the president. They had tea with him and his wife, and her and her husband, and they sat for several hours. And how terrible Germany feels now. Anyways, kids at Maisa, we have to do mitzvahs. We have to spread Yiddishkeit and have a good time doing it.
Let me just, what Rav David is saying is giving you perspective on this picture, but what you see in the picture is very, very, very scary, because what you see is, this is
a million
Yimach
people.
Shemai.
This is a million people.
This is a million people doing Hail Hitler Yimach Shemai. They're all saluting to him, which is an army that was there for Choshech. We're there to kill Yidden and to kill people and to make Europe Rahman Islam Judenrein. Judenrein is to clean up, and he took his ideology and spread it. Everybody bought into it, and I think when you look at this picture, besides the scary part of it, what we really need to notice is that there's a lot of clippers that find wonderful ways to get in. If a person like this could sell such a mushlistic idea to there's 1 million people here.
I want to stop for a second. I want you to look at this video over here. I want you to look at the enthusiasm, of the children and the people inside this video. Just watch. Look how they're übergegeben and they're so reingetan in what they're doing. Just watch. There's millions of people, millions.
Probably 10 million.
And this is, one second, I'm saying in a kudde here, I want them to watch this. And the Rebbe is talking about, and this is for Cheshech, the Rebbe wants us to make PLF this for the Eibishter. That the entire world, this is for Cheshech, for Shtusim v'Havalim, for evil. This is what he was able to get people to do. Now imagine the strength of a Yid, and the strength of Der Ashvi Befrat. What we need to do, to turn the entire world into standing and saying, Ein Eid Milvadeh. The Eibishter, give a cook. People on the street, Pashat, sitting and waiting for this Yemach Shemenik. And what's our job? Our job is erstens to look at this and say, if you ever think for a second that something's impossible, even from the worst places you could learn, as nicht impossible is impossible. That's erstens. Zweitens is, you have to realize what kind of Mesira they had and realize how much PLF we have to have a Mesira to the Eibishter, to the Rebbe. That's just an akudah that we could learn from everything that we see. But understand what kind of cheshech it was. It was absolutely dominating the people, that they were ready to go out and push it, kill and kill and kill. We're going to go through and see for a minute. It's very important to open your eyes for a minute and see what were the things that the Yidden went through. And we're going to go through for a minute. We're not going to take long.
She told me that one time when Hitler came through by her, so she didn't have a choice. She had to stand there with her family and say Heil Hitler, because otherwise, whatever. So, but that's not generally what you're seeing in the pictures over here. Over here was, all of the Goyim, submitting to this.
Actually, there's yesterday we heard from Rabbi Paltiel, he chazered that once the Rebbe's brother Label was also in Berlin at the rise when Hitler and Machshmai started coming to power, and he went by and everyone was saluting and they demanded he salute. He was not ready to salute to Klippa, and they gave him klep. He Pashat came home with some mazik there. But it's really, we don't have a lot of time here, and we shouldn't spend a lot of time for this, but we need to remember, just take this nakud in your mind as we go through, that if Klippa was able to put together such an army to do what they need to do, then when the Rebbe enrolls us in the ranks for what we need to do by spreading Yiddishkeit and Eibishter, we need to do 1,000,000 times more dedicated than the Klippa could ever want to be for doing such destruction. They were all Yidden, and basically what happened was Hitler and Machshmai came up with a vision. I don't know, you don't need a camera for this, but he came up with a vision explaining that he's gonna make the perfect person. Okay, you have to have a nose exactly this size. People that don't fit that don't belong in this world, and that's why he went where we went yesterday, where he killed out the whole hospital. The Rebbe's brother was B'Soicham, and based on that Eidos, the Rebbe kept the art site. Beryl, the Rebbe's brother Beryl, was for the same vision. He had a vision, it's mamish klippa, it's mamish ashmedai. So he had this vision that he's going to come up with a perfect mix for what a person is. Anyone beyond the Aryan race, it was called, and doesn't belong in this world. And Yidden were the klippa of the world in his eyes, even though the reason they put all these pictures here is to show you that the ratio of Nobel Prizes by the Yidden has zero ratio with the amount of people there is in the world. It means Yidden are below 1% of the population of the world, and they take like 30 or 40% of the smartest people. But him, Yemach Shmoi, came up with the vision, sold the vision, and got all these millions of people to follow his vision, and they all were mitzvah of themselves to Klippa. That's exactly how we need to take the Rebbe's vision, run with it, and make sure all people take part in it.
Deutsch-Politiker Mischling, which is like a mix, and then you can see like how they calculate it down to like if you're 1/4% Jewish, then you're already out. In fact, now in Israel, they let in anyone who's even 1/4 Jewish, right? specifically to go against what Hitler was doing, right? So as long as your father's father was Jewish, they'll allow you to go into Israel.
I just want to point out, just someone once told us to me.
Explain the Rebbe's.
Obviously, that's not according
Not
to
a
Rebbe
Yid,
Shitta.
yeah.
In
And
other words, they're
explain
not,
what the
they're
Rebbe
not
Shitta
actually.
is.
Rebbe Shitta, of course, is the Miu Yehudi, and you have to be.
Zay Masbe, how much the Rebbe put into Yehudi and what it meant for the Rebbe? Ich weiß nicht. I just know that it exists. I don't know the details.
Okay.
Rebbe Yezevich.
And I just want to point out, Klippa has it, you should know that nothing happens without the Eibishter. We can understand this for a second. We can understand this. Our Seichel can understand the Eibishter. The only thing we do understand, the Rebbe teaches us, is to have tainus. A Yid must have tainus to the Eibishter. He can't. The Eibishter knows what he's doing, but the Eibishter wants us to scream out. One of the rayas is that the Eibishter, it was a Gzeir Mita Yisbarach, was the fact that no one would ever believe. All the Yidden that assimilated in Germany never believed we're Yidden B'chlal. They said we just look like the Goyim. That a person should come up with a theory that will actually kill every Yid that's halachically a Yid. He doesn't even need to look like a Yid. He doesn't look like a Yid. His Zayda was already assimilated. But he was mother's Elter Baba. He came up with a theory that Begashmius made sense to a million people and was able to get people on board to kill people that are Yidden al pi halacha. It's a mind-boggling thing that just tells you that it doesn't tell you that it's right, chas v'shalom, because it's not. It's as far as could be from anything that makes sense. But that the Eibishter knew, and therefore the Rebbe says we have to come with tainus. That even if the Eibishter has a reason, we have to man like Moshe Rabbeinu, Lama Hariyos Olam Hazeh. And the Rebbe said if this could happen, then we have to do punkt verkehrt. And from now on, the Frierdiker Rebbe called it Mochames Goy Gomogay. And now we're finished with Chevlei Mashiach. Now is the time for this galus. So it's kedai just to remember these things as you go through and you see horror things that Klippa was able to do, to remember that there's an English there, and that they decided to break down. There were thousands of shuls, hundreds of thousands of shuls, I'm sure, tens of thousands for sure, in one night. It was called Kristallnacht because they broke all the windows, set fire to all the shuls, and shuls that Yidden davened in for hundreds of years. We're talking about 300. Yidden were in Europe for 400 years at least, 500 years. The Ramah already was in Europe, in Krakow. Everything in one night. Klippa was able to, when the Eibishter, I guess, boom. One second, we're going the wrong way.
Like this,
This is showing you a little bit of the back. How they came to those now. Okay, I don't understand. Okay, just one of the things I want to talk for a minute about Koyach HaDibur. L'maisa bepoil, and again, everything moivay tchakmeni. The fact is the way Hitler Machshmai took over and spread his shitta was with the Chosh HaDibur. He took care of the media, he chapped the media, then chapped the schools and trained in kids. He started with kids up and push it slowly within not a few years, transform people's way of thinking. And obviously, Meruba Mida Taiva, but that's one of the things expressed over here. This was the media, the news, and once he conquered that, he continued on to getting technical, Ahmad Islam, with getting an army together.
One second. This is the shul. Here. This is where we are. No, this is not the Dnipro shul. Is this not where the building we're in right now?
I was by a famous
I think it is. I think this is the shul.
Yosef,
Okay, right there.
Where's the?
Guys, these loudspeakers were used to like announce news of the war all over the place. So they had it in every city. They had these all over the place. So you could like do warnings about what was going on and so on.
This is how one night he told Yidden, you have to take your bags. Kilo, there's a specific place where Yidden have to be. It was called a ghetto, and a ghetto was that Yidden are only allowed to be within these streets, and Yidden had to just in one night take whatever they owned. So therefore, every Holocaust museum you'll see a little pushka, a little candle. That's a Yid had to decide what is he taking with him for life, and everything else he left for the going to steal Rahman al-Islam. So this is them taking all their belongings and just putting it on a square wagon and moving. This is Golos. Golos.
Must be something.
This is the part where this is the fences.
Ah, interesting. Well, here you can see a suitcase with the impression from a Jewish star.
Good,
On
right
the back you see this is the train cars. When they decided, you can open it? Oh wow. When they decided Rahman al-Islam to transport Yidden to death camps. These are cattle cars. These are cars that they send Rahman al-Islam, they send behemoths, and these not Rahman al-Islam, they send it meant for behemoths. They push it packed Yidden, they say 20 to 30% died on the way. They don't die, they're Kedoshim, and they're these people, anybody that passed away in the war are Kedoshim, Shem Yinka and Damam, and they were Moiser Nefesh, as Yidden. The fact is, the way it was done, they closed them in these cattle cars, and sent them off to Auschwitz, Treblinka.
Sometimes they're in there for 3 days or longer. No food, no bathrooms, nothing.
My grandmother tells her stories of being in these cars. Says, yeah, yeah. Says that's how they ran away. But it was passionate about getting the air from the window, and when they were closed in there, it was passionate dripping a little bit of water from the snow that was melting on the roof. They passionate took turns to get that water into their mouth, passionate to be able to survive in this car.
This is Deutsche Reichsbahn. Deutsche means Deutsche Reichsbahn. The Reich was the name of the Kennedy-Reich, and this is Posen. Posen is one of the other cities. They marked Yidden. Any Yid that was going had to have a symbol on him.
This was the prisoner doctor of Auschwitz.
What's unbelievable, the Rebbe talks about a lot of times by Farbrengens, how, like what Yossi started saying at the beginning, that the Germans were the most aristocratic people. They were considered the Kidma, the most enlightened people in the world. And the Rebbe says in the time that they were killing people, they had organizations to save animals. That's how Klippa has its way, that people now stop and think, how in the world did it make sense to all these million people what they were doing? But it didn't. That's the way we have to be afraid and stay away from Klippa, way of looking at things. Everything was calculated. Every tooth that they took out with gold had calculations and where it's going to go and how it's going to support the war. They were normal people, and Klippa had it, and Rahman al-Islam happened. What happened? These are the gas chambers that after they killed Yidden, these are the clothes went to one place, the teeth went to another place, and then they put them all into gas chambers, into the crematorium, and these are the station. Huh?
Guys, you see the machine gun? This was from the partisan fighters, the partisans, who fought back against the Nazis. This is one of the tools that they had at their disposal to fight against them. My wife's grandfather was a partisan soldier. There's a story in the family where he took out a Nazi's eye.
The Zusha partisan, obviously you see dancing behind the Rebbe. He got the name not from the Pasha partisan. He was a partisan. You should know the partisan wasn't a blanket statement. The partisan killed the Yidden also. Men did that.
They wanted to kill him also?
Who? Reb Zusha. The partisans were much less of an organization, so it's not a blanket statement because there were.
By the way, like the other nations, the Ukrainians, the Polish, that guy who went to the gas chambers with the Yidden, I can tell you another story.
We have as a person, his name is Sugi Har Maizeh, the Moshe Rubin was saved together with all the Tminim in Shanghai. It was a Nazi representative. He was also Abba, was also there. And there was there also. More and more visas, and he was mamish mechsid and just to show you how a guy liked a guy, he himself was Chassidei Yisraelim. His son was never ready to come and take the honor of being the son of Chassidei Yisraelim because he wasn't 100% sure that what his father did was right. But he was Pashit, Maisa,
He
Nafshay.
wasn't 100% sure.
So we're driving down the street, and one of my kids says, "Oh, mezuzah." I'm like, "Okay, fine. I'm gonna come back on Friday with the challah." So I come back on Friday with the challah. I go to the door. I realize there's no mezuzah. It's just some discoloration, right? I figured, okay, Ashkacha Pratis. So I knock on the door anyways. I introduce myself. Hi, I'm Rabbi Bush. Just moved here, whatever. And do you happen to be Jewish? By the way, I stalked her on white pages before. The name maybe could have been a Jewish name. She's 93 years old. She tells me she's not Jewish. She's also diabetic, so she can't take the challah. But she tells me that during the war, a Jewish doctor came to the house and asked her mother if they could take in her daughter, and so they kept the daughter, whose name was Sarah Castenson, for several months in the basement, and she stayed there the whole time. They would go down every night to bring her food until one night they came downstairs and she was gone. And after the war, there was a knock on the door, and the girl had come back to say thank you. That night, when basically the smugglers had come, taken her out and across the border, so she didn't even have a chance to say, that's what it was like then, right? You did what you had to do, and Baruch Hashem, there were some Goyim who were willing to step up to the plate, and if they were caught, they would be killed. So, it was a tremendous thing what they did. Anyways, so Ashkacha Pratis, I found out the story.
The piano's not tuned.
Yeah, see, it's almost like my Russian.
Making
All you need to do is change the music.
I'm recording it, so I'm going to use the soundtrack and then.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Okay, one more.
Spread out your hands to the front. No, you have to. Oh, very good. It should look like it's much more.
And Niggin, help me with the Niggin. I just don't know what to do. Ah. Okay, please.
Yeah,
Go.
or we play without
Just
any.
hold it straight and you sit down, play. Which Niggin are you playing? Sit down.
You just copy your moves, you're not doing anything.
One more Niggin.
Is it 1:30 now?
Yeah.
One second.
doing a good job.
How you doing, Shas? Pain? Okay.
I just finished with a quick story. There's a picture, I didn't see it here, but it's a famous picture where you see a menorah and by a window, and then out the window you see a swastika flag. The story behind it is that it was Friday afternoon, right before Shabbos, Zeis Chanukah, and Rabbi Baruch and Rachel Posner. This is 1933. So basically, he lit the menorah, and right before she lit the candles, she was struck by this contrast between kedusha and klippa, and so she grabbed her camera, her Polaroid camera. She snapped the picture, out came the picture, and she jotted down just a few words on the back of the picture. She wrote, Judah, this is in English, Judah wird sterben, das sagt die Flag, right? That the Yidden are going to die, that's what the flag says. Yehuda wird leben, farevik, das sagt die menorah, right? The Yidden will live forever, that's what the menorah says. And it was that month that that Hitler rose to power, and the rest is history. And now here we are in the Menorah building with a museum about the Holocaust in the biggest Jewish center in the world. And Yehuda vet leben farevik. Okay, that's what she's saying, that you probably shouldn't play on it.
What should we remember?
Yes, he's always been known for his
For his dedication to getting the job done.